And welcome to PM Express Business Edition. And one would ask myself that when you go out there to get something as a consumer, how do you ensure that you're protected as a consumer? And also, how bad is this tariff that President Donald Trump has actually placed on all imports from Ghana also going to affect you and I? Looking at the fact that this is taking off and how is it going to impact our economy as a whole. And also, if you're a consumer out there, how do you ensure that you are also protected? Well, tonight you're looking at protecting consumers out there. Also, these tariffs that has been imposed on imports or every export or product coming in from Ghana to that country. How bad is it for the Ghanaian economy? The time that maybe we are seeing some stability, and how would this affect you and I? It's about the Donald Trump's tariffs and how it impacts you as a consumer out there and the impact on the larger economy. As we talk about this and other issues that affect you and I, this is PM Express Business Edition. We will be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we talk about the Trump tariff imposed on several countries, including Ghana, and you've got a product that economy will be attracting 10%. And how is that going to affect the Ghanaian economy? I mean, all of us thought it was quite remote from us until before this announcement. We even had the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, warning that these global trade wars wouldn't be good for the Ghanaian economy in terms of inflation and even the local currency. And what should be our policy response to this whole argument in terms of what should we do? Should we react also slapping additional tariffs on imports coming or export coming from the U.S. government, or we should rather go on that tangent of negotiating with the U.S. government to try and deal with this situation as well? Mr. Kosi Adimako, he is the West African Director of CAT International. He is here with me in studio, bringing the trade, the consumer angle, and also the perspective of an economist as well, and also Professor William Babwati. He is an economy journalist via Zoom to get some deeper understanding about the impact of this on the larger economy. We've joined us via Zoom as well. And let's try and get some numbers understanding because of the trade between U.S. and Ghana. And my producers will put these numbers on the screens for us to appreciate in terms of trade between Ghana and the United States of America. And if you look at there, you have the Trump reciprocal levy on imports. And don't forget that his argument that they are also responding to Ghana placing some tariffs also on American imports as well. And that is there. You could look at the fact that when it comes to goods coming from the U.S. markets to Ghana, we're placing 17% on them, and U.S. is responding to our goods also going to that country 10%. And some basic and the standard tariffs, these are basically tax on goods that we, Ghana, are exporting that country and be placing some 10% on this. In terms of trade volumes between these two countries, you're looking at somewhere around $2.48 billion. So in terms of what we be earning from our export to that economy as well. And if you also could look at the trend or the chart in terms of export, it's been picking up. It went up significantly somewhere around 2022. It dropped, and it's also picking up to $1.6 billion in terms of the export. Who needs who? Interested in terms of the exports to the U.S. Market and also import from the U.S., it appears that we are benefiting more in terms of our exports to the USA market, 1.6 and somewhere around $861 million. So you see that we are benefiting more from this particular trade between these two economies as well. And also, let's look at some will say that, okay, switch Ghana. Well, interesting. Let's look at what, in terms of our exporting to other economies as well. in terms of Switzerland, United Arab Emirates, South Africa, China, and also India over there. The numbers will help you appreciate in terms of the other markets and how we are taking advantage of that one as well. And also, if you look at Ghana's top import countries in terms of, it looks like it's tilted towards China. We are importing more from China compared to United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, India, and then you have the United States of America. So in terms of that switch, these are the numbers for you to get some deeper understanding in terms of what is happening, our exports, our imports. Let me bring in Mr. Kwesi Adomako. He's the West African Director for CAT International, policy think tank, trade, consumer understanding. And let me get your first thoughts. I mean, it was expected and it finally happened. For you, worried, or let's say it was expected?
It was a good evening. I think that yesterday's I watched it live. I think it was expected, and it's also rather concerning. It's not only Ghana that we should be concerned about it. It's something that the whole world, every nation, because no country was left out. Even those who were left out were those who got the 10%. The friendly nation.
Yeah.
Yes, UK got 10%, and China, you saw the range in which they were placed. And I think that this will have a serious repercussion for the global economy. In fact, we may experience some, economic downturn as a result of this tariff. Is going to reduce international trade. Jobs are going to be affected. In Ghana, we do export goods to the U.S. market. Last year, I was in Koforidua. There's a company, an apparel company that produces garments, contract-based to U.S. brands like Walmart and all the major brands. And these companies are all operated under the AGWA. Now, AGWA is the African Growth and Opportunity Act. It is a congressional act passed by the U.S. Congress. And so as to whether the president can use an executive instrument to restrict AGWA, I think yesterday that thing did not come out clearly. Perhaps maybe we may have to ask the U.S. Embassy to be able to
for
tell
some
us.
Clarity.
Yeah, though AGWA expires this year, and it is up for renewal. And I doubt whether the Trump administration would renew AGWA. But as a country, Ghana, this is also a sign that we need to be able to build our resilience against dependence on big brother America. I mean, the Trump administration has shown that U.S. can be unpredictable. Even its northern neighbor, Canada, and its neighbor over the Atlantic, United Kingdom. I mean, they were all not left out. And how much more Ghana? So I think that I'm sure that the president and his cabinet should be having a crisis meeting to look at how can we respond. Respond not in terms of, putting tariffs on America.
Should we go that way of also
that will
hiking the 17% to about 30%? Every country is doing that.
It will create more problems than it's tend to solve. So I think that we need to look at how we can we need to find alternative route for our export. Already, African Continental Free Trade is here, and a market that comes with minimum restriction on our product. So if we can take advantage of the African market, I'm very sure that we may, of course, exporters want to export things into America and get dollars. But when you export goods to Mozambique and they are paying, you get dollars. You don't get Mozambican peso. So I think that, but the only problem is that our trading infrastructures do not support trade among Africa. Today I was telling someone that if you want to ship goods from Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire, the ship, when it leaves Tema here, it has to go to Madrid, Spain. before another ship coming to Cote d'Ivoire will bring it. All because these logistic companies are owned by these Europeans and these non-Africans. And so they operate like the spoke and hub. They take your goods from Tema, the next destination is what? Their hub. It's like when you are going to, if I'm going to Nigeria, Abuja, and I want to go with British Airways.
It takes you to London Heathrow before it flies you back to Nigeria.
Yes, so that is how the trading system is. So until African businesses invest well into the trading logistics, I think that the international trade will also not affect us.
Mr. Marco, I'm becoming more to appreciate. I mean, you work in this trade space, you engage a lot of businesses in this space, and how bad this thing would be for them. But you've expressed your initial shocks at this action. Let me go on to Zoom and bring in Professor William Barb-Whiting. He is an economist. I mean, for you, were you surprised by this? Because I thought that in all of this, Ghana would be excused. And we saw the chart and realized that Ghana is also attracting 10% of our product to that market. For you, were you worried by this development? Or, listen, George, I expected this as an economist, you know.
And good evening to your listeners and my colleague. I expected it. Of course, before the election, President Trump gave some hints. And knowing him, I didn't think that any country would be spared. But let's put it in perspective. President Trump is a businessman. And being a businessman, you know, he will by all means play what we call the game theory, making sure that his country, that the US, benefit from all kinds of trade across the globe. So I was not surprised that we had this affecting almost every country. But I would say that I think as a country, Ghana, and a small country in the global trade environment, we don't have to panic. I think it requires a sober reflection of our economy and our trading destinations, and then look at it in detail and find out how we can navigate through this. Now, we have to understand the effect and how this will play out. In trade space, there are different types of restrictions. In the past, they used to have these kinds of quotas where countries will be given certain number of maybe quantity that you can export. We have this tariff, we have other restrictions. Now, this is tariff. It's more like a tax imposed on your export. In other words, imports to US. So how will it affect you as the exporting country? Now you have to place it within the total export earnings that you have, and that will tell you the effect. Now, before I come to that, let's look at how the effect will be, the transmission mechanism, and what we should expect. Now, when tariff is imposed, it means that the price of your export in the destination country is going to go up. So it means that the consumers in US are going to buy your goods at least at 10% price hike on average. So let me put it that way. So if they were buying your goods at say $10, it means that they should expect that it will go to about $11. In other words, the prices of your export products in the market will increase. And the immediate effect will be that when the price goes up, it means consumers are going to look at it and ask whether they are going to demand the same quantity. So theoretically, you see that if the price goes up, then US consumers are going to reduce their consumption, and therefore it could affect the quantity that we export. But not to go deeper into it, it depends on how important our exports are to the consumers in the US market. So that is where the effect will be. In other words, if we put everything together, it will affect the quantity because the demand for the product that we export is going to go down. But there's another channel which is indirect. And indirect here is that in Ghana, we also import some kind of intermediate products, capital goods from US. And those goods that are produced in US, some of them may have the raw materials coming from other countries that have been slapped with tariff. So it means that those countries are going to export those raw materials to the US, and the firms that are going to produce those intermediate or even final goods or capital goods, so to speak, are going to also produce at a higher cost. So when we import from them, we are going to import it at a higher price. And therefore, it will affect our economy in terms of the price being imported into our domestic market, and we could have some price hikes as far as our inflation is concerned. So that is one other indirect effect that we should expect. The other one is that we also have our trading partners, apart from the US, we have China, we have UK, and all of them are crying. So if they are also crying because US has come up with this, and we are exporting to them, when there is peace, everything is stable in their country, and you export to them, you should know that there is certainty. But they are also facing uncertainty. So even our export to other countries may also have some kind of hit. So that is where the effect is going to be. But taking the direct effect, if you look at the figures, and I'm happy you gave us the figures, the composition of total export earning that we get from US is less than 10%. I mean, it's China, that is where most of our export go. We have Switzerland, we have UK, and so on. And therefore, if you talk about 10%, the direct effect will not be as much as if it had come from our leading export destination like China. But because there are other effects that may not be direct, the indirect one, that is where it makes the discussion a bit more concerning. And that we as a country should look at it, deliberate on it, look at the figures. We don't have to panic, and we should be able to find a way to navigate through.
Prof, it's still coming back to the bit about no need to panic. I still want to get back again the one-on-ones and the linkage that you do. So one, it could have an impact on the demand of our goods in the US. And I was looking at the Ghana Export Promotion Authority's data in 2023, and things even as normal as human hair, I mean, meat, paste, earrings, we're all getting to the US market, and the average earning somewhere even as much as $100,000. There will be an impact on these goods on the US market. You raised the question about that means it has an impact on FX inflows to Ghanaians here and earnings for the country. You talked about import inflation as well. I mean, could it be that bad? And when we heard the governor at the beginning of the NPC warning that these global trades, if it's not managed well, could hurt our economy, could impact on inflation, could impact on the city, he was not blowing things out of proportion, right?
Well, I mean, it was a caution that he was giving us. Nobody can say it will not have any effect, but it depends on the impact as to the magnitude of the impact that we need to look at. We are a small country, and I will never recommend that we have to retaliate. No, because even so, China, EU, Canada, I mean, they are big players. So for them, you can leave it to the back. For us, as a small country, I would not say we have to retaliate. I would say that we have to look at the channel through which the effect will be. And I said, if you don't sit down and analyze it well, ours is 10%. We are lucky to have 10%. China is having in excess of 34%. Lesotho, I read, and they have some about 50%. So that is very big. From our perspective, it is 10%. And if it is 10%, then the point here is that what will be the magnitude of the effect on the demand for our export when it gets to the US? So if we bring in the elasticities and everything, and we realize that the reduction in our export demand may not be as much as we expect, then we just have to increase the volume. If we increase the volume, we'll be able to make up the difference that may come up as far as the demand is concerned. And we also need to make our products so important, because if it is so essential to the US market, then we don't need to worry ourselves if there's just about 10, when there's a 10% slap on us. This is different from telling us that, well, we have canceled AGUA. We are not going to allow any export from Ghana to the US. Then we have to panic. Then we have a problem. But now it is a slap of a tariff of 10% on us. We just have to be sober, look at the numbers, look at what is happening in other countries. And when you have this kind of challenge, this is not where you begin to take a very big decision. Analyze it, get experts to go through it. All the institutions that we have in Ghana have experts there. We have researchers who will look at it and tell government the effect, possible effect, and how we should position ourselves as far as this turbulent is concerned.
Prof, I'll come back to you about the policy response, but I get from you that indeed this will have serious implications on the economy, whichever we want to look at this.
Yes, I mean, I gave you 3 different channels through which we can have the effect of this. But we didn't, as I will still continue, we need not panic. Because if you panic and you press the panic button, you may make a mistake. It happened yesterday. We are having a discussion. And as I said, U.S. export earnings, the export earnings from U.S. account for less than about 10%. So if we have about, let's say, $10 billion of export earnings, then you should expect that if nothing at all, the 1 billion will be affected. It doesn't mean that the total 1 billion is what we are going to lose, but there will be some kind of effect. Job losses. My colleague talked about some of the firms that export to the U.S. So how will the U.S. consumers respond to an increase in the tariff? We will come to the strategies, but it demands a lot of a combination of strategy to be able to get out of this kind of turbulence.
Prof, I'll come back to you. You mentioned strategies and response, but Mr. Adomako, I mean, you operate in a space where you engage a lot of businesses, and you even mentioned the Koforidua example. How, bringing it to the local level, in terms of the level of exposure, how widespread is it? And again, I looked at the Ghana Export Promotion Authority list for 2023, and I was shocked that the items I saw and the earnings that people were, I mean, the wicks, the bit about the paste, the cakes, and some were earning as much as $200,000 from these things. Help me out in terms of CATS International and the engagement that you've had with some of these businesses locally in terms of the exposure. We may, at the bigger economy level, we could try to maybe downplay it, but for that SME, for that small business person that was dependent a lot on this to employ people and all the rest, how bad is the situation?
I think the situation is very severe. You may not know it until you get to see Ghanaian firms that are exporting into it. I mean, the firm that is in Koforidua where I went, if they don't get favorable rates in the US, they may decide to shut down, and over 10,000 Ghanaians will lose their job. It's not, that is just the effect on labor. Then also, the export earning that's supposed to come to support the CD will also not have it again. And this is just one single company. Go to the free zone enclave. Most companies are also producing intermediary goods to the US market, and most of these companies may not be able to export the volume that they used to export. And most of these, the effect is that they are going to reduce their labor force. The forex that they are also getting back to support the CD will also not. And so we will, as a country, we should brace ourselves for a tough time this year. And I want His Excellency, the President, to invite the top economists in this country to the Flagstaff House by Monday. I mean, when you go to most countries, whenever there's a problem, the first refuge they go is not the temple. They call professors and scientists to come and proffer solutions, and then the government runs with it. This is the time for us to, tap into the best brains. Government pays the salaries of our professors. Government also even subsidizes our training at the university. And this is the best time for us to get ideas. And I know that His Excellency, the President, is a president that listens. That is why about 2 weeks ago, there was the National Economic Dialogue. And though we were expecting this tariff to come, but not in this magnitude. And I know that His Excellency, by next week, may consider to do that.
I'm looking at, and I may try to project some of this on television. I'm looking again at the Ghana Export Promotion Authority in terms of the data. And for 2023, in terms of earnings from the export of Gary to that country, we're looking at $1.4 billion.
Yes.
This is Gary
and
to U.S. market
even
in 2023.
Even this yam, tubers of yam are getting the smoked dry fish. And, the Ghanaian communities in the U.S., they consume a lot of this.
And sorry to cut you, having lived in the U.S. a little bit, it's not even alone the Ghanaian community, the African community. Even though you have some of these substitutes coming from Mexico and then the Caribbeans, in terms of the taste and the quality, it looks like a lot of people still prefer. You go to some restaurant there that serve Ghanaian food, and you see the people who come there, the African markets. You have certain white people also consuming this thing. The taste and the quality of some of these things. And so it's not just about even, sorry that I interrupted, just about Ghanaians who prefer these things.
Yeah, so there's going to be a serious consequences for the Ghanaian economy in the short run. Maybe in the medium to long term, we may be able to find an alternative to some of these things. But I think that Trump is also a human being. If Africans decide to go and negotiate in a bloc for Trump to delay, the reason, though African countries can afford, Ghana can afford to place 70% tariffs on U.S. goods. Ghana is a developing country. Ghana needs those revenue to build. Look, if the port in Tema were to be made free port, the whole country will jobs will collapse. Government will not get money to run the economy. But U.S. for many years could afford to allow even goods to enter into its market duty-free, quota-free, tariff-free. But Ghana, African countries cannot afford that luxury. And so
it looks like I get from you that you are against a free trade deal, a reciprocal free trade deal, because we've had something like that before. I don't know. No, it wasn't like that under the quota-free, duty-free. It wasn't like that. But do you think that let's move quickly to have a free trade deal with the U.S. government?
No. We can ask Trump to tone down to, let's say, 5%. Or give African countries some time to be...
He's asking for a reciprocal trade deal.
Yes.
So if you're charging their goods...
The thing is that, you see, like, if I owe you 10 cedis and somebody owes you 20 cedis, sometimes you can let the person who owes you 10 cedis to go because the effect on that person's pocket may not be high as the one that owes you 20 cedis. So Africans cannot allow our port, cannot afford zero tariff on our goods.
Ghana shouldn't go that way.
Yes, because that's going to cause a lot of problems. We are going to kill our local industries, number one. Number two, government will also not get money. This economy is what? Informal economy. And if you don't take the tax at the port in Tema, you will not be able to get the taxes anywhere. Until we are able to formalize the economy and everybody can be identified and we are able to get more from direct taxes, that's the time that Ghana can decide to tone down its tariffs at the port. But for now, we cannot afford that luxury.
Mr. Dumaku, you are also engaged businesses in this space and you worked with them, CAT International, all the rest. We talked about diversifying. Some will say how easy it is or how difficult it is in terms of finding new markets for these products and pair your work with these small businesses and engagements and all those things. I don't know about the number of businesses, but if Gary alone was fetching us about $1.4 billion in 2023, for that woman, that association, maybe somewhere, Makola, or maybe Abugboloshi, or maybe from Kumasi, they are satisfied with that market. The taste is there. How difficult is it or easy would it be for that SME or those businesses here who have been able to get that good market in the US and they're exporting to quickly look at alternatives for this? Is it that easy? I mean,
it is
the
not,
business background you're coming from, your work you've done in this space.
I mean, it's not going to be that easy in the short term, medium term, maybe in the long term. But
let's talk about the short term, the medium term.
No, the short term is not possible. If, let's say, Ghanaians, some of these food are consumed by Ghanaians in those countries. You will not find the same quantity of Ghanaians living in China or Indonesia or India to consume some of those products. And so what it means is that there will be no demand of those products in the other side, in the US. So it means that you have them in excess surplus here, and then the prices will go down, which is good for the Ghanaian consumer. But you know that jobs are going to be affected. Forex that government will use to support the city will also go. And if care is not taken, we may also be heading to, I don't want to mention the name again, because if we don't get enough forests, that's one of the reasons why we went to IMF some years, 2 years ago. So it is very, very important that we manage this. That is why I'm calling His Excellency the President to invite the best brain to come and sit together and dialogue on how to find a very good strategy. Early this year, when the USAID scrapped their support to our health sector, the President asked the Finance Minister to find $150 million to fill in the gap. And that was a very quick response by His Excellency the President.
So you want him to go that way?
Yes. Also look at how can we confront this in the short term, medium term, and then in the long term, maybe we can.
Before even you look at the governmental bit, I mean, what about the associations as a block, AGI? What should some of these business interest groups, the Chamber of Commerce and all the rest, what should be their advice to their members right now, the advice to their colleagues right now about the short to medium term, about what you should do because of the cost element and all the rest that is going to hit some of these small businesses?
No, as Professor Bob Watson said, that Trump is saying that don't bring your goods to the US market. Just that we're going to place a 10% tariffs on it. And depending upon the elasticity of demand of those products, if your product is so essential, maybe the quantity demanded will not go down that much. However, if the product is such that people can find substitute in the US, then there will no need for people to import into the US market. So what we can do as a country is that start doing market studies across various countries where there is potential need for those.
And that's where institutions like the Ghana Export Promotion Authority comes right
and
now,
also the
Trade
GIPC,
Ministry and all the rest.
Yeah, GIPC. This is the time that GIPC is also needed to also start a trade show. Now, it's not only Ghana, that is also, everywhere you go, everybody will also be carrying the headache that Trump has brought.
There's cassava from Mexico, there's cassava from the Caribbean,
Yes.
and always they are on the, they have the alternative. Only that sometimes the taste and whatever, the Ghanaian taste is still...
But there's also like cassava, Ghanaian cassava, even plantain. In the US, anytime you eat the Mexican or the Colombian plantain, it's not as nice as the one
It is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it means that people will still love them. And having gone through, and also let's note that the world has just gone through an inflation rate that was very severe. And so even if the tariff goes up on most of these products, people can easily adapt depending upon the product, unless they're able to produce similar goods in the US that will be cheaper, then there'll be no need. By the short term too, they will be able to produce those goods in the US. And so they will still have to rely on the one from Africa. And inflation has, battered U.S. economy also. That goods that were sold for, let's say, $10 in 2019 is now even $20. And so consumers may be able to adjust easily because they are still, it's not long ago that they left the inflation. Of course, we've seen inflation trending down in the U.S. for the past couple of months. And so but still the problem is that it may affect some sectors. But of course, let's take into cocoa, for example. U.S. is unable to grow cocoa. So regardless of how the tariff goes, Americans who like cocoa products like the chocolate will still, and everybody wants to get Ghanaian brand. And so
you talked about cocoa. Can the same thing be used for other products? Our premium cocoa has done the trick for us in other markets where people have developed artificial cocoa and all the rest. Can the same be said for the Ghana Gari? And I must confess that if these numbers are anything to go by, I am surprised that just for the U.S. market, 2023, you got $1.4 billion from just the export of Gari. And if cocoa has done the trick for us in terms of the premium cocoa, can the same be said for these other products that we are exporting to this market that I go and I will still want to ask for? When I go to a London market, I want to ask for the puna that's coming from Ghana, and all the rest, and even other European markets.
What we have not done as a country is to hype our products and market our brands. The way cocoa is just by default that people like Ghana cocoa. But if Ghana were supposed to invest a lot of resources in the research, R&D on our products and make our product fit for purpose at the other side of the Atlantic, people will bypass Indonesian brands, Jamaican brands, and then come to Ghana brand because of what? How we've marketed it. Unfortunately, illegal mining is also taking toll on our farming activities. And if that thing is also flagged in Washington, if we don't take care, even our products may not even be permitted to enter into the U.S. market, even in the same place. And so we need to sit down and make sure that we've been able to fight the illegal mining, and that our products that are entering the U.S. market will not have any residue of mercury or mining-related chemicals. That is one thing. And also, recently I was in one of the European countries and I saw a chocolate, and they've written that made a Chinese chocolate. They said that made in, produced from a land that is not polluted from anything. Invariably, they have come here to pollute our waters, and they are selling brands, their brands to you that their brands have not been polluted.
I'll be coming back to you on the immediate solution, but let me get on to Zoom and speak to Professor William Barboatin. In terms of, I think that for the trade minister, and those are some of the numbers that you see there, the product on the screen, and these are the earnings. If you can go to the Gari bit, and I hope I got my calculation right when I was doing the Gari. So that is 1, 2, 3. If you could go a little bit, so if it's right, is it a billion or a million? I hope I got it right. In terms of the Gari calculation, what I see there, it's a million rather, but I thought I was scrolling on my screen, but I didn't get it right. So if it's what I see from there, it's more of $1.4 million and not a billion in terms of the Gari export as well. So these are some of the goods that if you see on the screen, according to the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, let's look at this one for shea nut, that is the shea nut oil, also that one is 1.1 billion. I'm right. I hope I'm getting my calculation right.
It's a million.
Million, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a million, sorry. So it's not billion. Please forgive me. It looks like I wasn't looking at that on my phone screen very well. So these are some of the goods that in 2023, according to the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, the values that we earn: cocoa paste, raw lead, natural rubber sheets, cocoa powder, soya beans, cocoa cake, cashew nuts. Cashew nut is it $3 million? I hope I'm getting these numbers right, whether my eyes are seeing well. So these are the numbers that you see there in terms of olive fabrications, Yam as well got us somewhere. That is $2.2 million, right? I hope, yeah. And that is just the export of yam to the European market. And those are the numbers. And this is even in 2023. So we don't know how the numbers were. And for that quick correction there, the Gary earnings was $1.4 million and not billion dollars, as I said earlier on. So these are the numbers that you see on your screens, and that is what the Ghana Export Promotion Authority gave us in terms of look at wigs, actually, false braids, eyebrows, 579,000 US dollars coming from Ghana. Mineral water from Ghana to the US market, 31,000 US dollars. Sorry, yeah, we have the yam flour as well, artificial plastic nets, maize. And so, for those who thought I was just about the cocoa, gold, and these are the non-traditional exports that have found their way to the US market. Prof, I know you play with these numbers when it comes to your research and all the rest, but surprised by these numbers that you've seen from the Ghana Export Promotion Authority?
Not at all.
And the earnings as well?
Not at all. I'm not surprised about this number. Not at all. I'm not surprised because you have the aggregate, which is in billions. So not at all. But I think the discussion, very interesting. And you say, I kept on saying that we shouldn't panic. And Mr. Admako made a very important point that, well, substitutes and this and that. But the bottom line is all countries have been affected by the tariff. So it's not that some countries have been left out. And therefore, the export of the export or import from those countries are going to be very low. No, that is not what it is. It appears that all countries have been affected by this tariff, especially in Ghana. We got the base, which is 10%. I'm yet to see whether we got more than 10%, but we got the base. Caribbeans, Mexicans, I mean, all of them have gotten the tariff. So when we all export to the US with a tariff, it irons out, it levens out. So it means that what will make us, our exports competitive will be how it is, whether the taste is good, who is going to do. So that is why I said, it is not that Ghana is the only country that is being affected, and we have not been banned from exporting to these countries. So I think we shouldn't make it like a panic thing, but we still have something that we can do to be able to get in there. Those commodities that you mentioned, the gari, the yam, and so on, when you are there, you don't want to taste any yam from any country apart from Ghana. Your cocoa yam, your plantain, and even your gari, and so on and so forth. So if ours has the better quality, and we have been affected by 10% tariff, and Caribbean, Mexicans, and other countries have also been affected by 10% and more, it means that nobody is going to have his consumers shift to the others. So we will still have it, except that we have something that we can do as a country to minimize the potential impact. I mean, if you look at the export, we also export crude petroleum. So somebody will ask, why is it that we will worry ourselves to export crude petroleum to the US? Why can't we find a way to refine it instead of importing the refined oil to come and use? If there is this tariff and we can use the opportunity to also refine our own and then demand it locally, I think that is one aspect that we can do to minimize the potential cost by adding value to those that we can add. Of course, the other ones that we have, the cocoa beans and also the cocoa paste and so on. For the beans, we can continue to shift towards the processed ones. And apart from that, I think you said it initially, find other markets, look at other markets to be able to know that the demand that will fall from here, we can look at other markets and get it from there. So we have a way to go as far as this is concerned. The other one is we don't want to put a lot of pressure on government because government is also
Prof, that is what I was
affected.
coming to.
Otherwise,
I mean,
government can do
Prof,
something.
Prof, and that's what I was coming to. I'm watching the wires, Financial Times, Reuters, Bloomberg, and several governments are all reacting in terms of their policy response. I mean, Trade Ministry, Trade Minister, the other ministries. What should be government's immediate response to this challenge?
Well, the first one is a bit dicey, but there are taxes on our export products. So if indeed this tariff is something that is going to worry us, can we absorb part of it so that at least when it goes out there, it will not be sold at higher price? That is one aspect that you can look at. There are other bottlenecks that increase the cost of production locally. Mr. Mwako may tell you that there may be other costs that we don't normally talk about. And the structural bottlenecks, the environment, and sometimes the number of hours, days that you spend at the port before your goods can get out of the port, it all adds up to your cost. So for instance, if you have you are in Koforidua and you are exporting Gary to the US, and the car that you rented is going to spend about 3-4 days there. Can we do something to minimize those bottlenecks such that the car will just spend 1 day and then the goods will get out, and the 2 additional days that will be cost to the firm will not be there. So in that case, the cost of production will be lower. So something that we can do, think through it, so that we will allow firms that are, especially the non-traditional export, to be able to reduce their cost. And in that case, the tariff effect will be minimized.
But isn't this more of the medium to long-term, Prof? Or maybe I might be wrong, Prof.
It is medium to long-term. So I spoke about the short-term one.
Short-term, what should the Ministry of Trade be coming out with a statement assuring these businesses and all the rest because of what has happened? Because there are some which goods are in transit as we speak right now, and they don't know what to do. They've gone for facilities from commercial banks and all the rest. This could hit on their impact, even to repay some of these LCs or these loans that they've gone from the commercial banks. That's why I'm asking that. What should be?
That's a very important. That is very important. That is why I started my submission by saying we should not panic. That's the first thing. And I expect the Ministry of Trade and Agribusiness to come in and assure us, because I mean they have the figures. I mean they will be able to know how the effect will be. It is not rocket science. You should be able to know the impact and so on and so forth. And as to whether it will be severe or not, you'll be able to and assure exporters that there's no cause for alarm. I mean, there's going to be some effect, but the effect will not be as severe as we anticipate. We are not Canada, where we've been slapped with over 50%. We are not China, where we have in excess of 50%. We are not even Lesotho, which has been slapped with 50%. We have the 10%. Let's be sober so that we will not panic in that instant. Maybe the first thing that, as I said, is maybe to give some kind of relief to exporters, and I spoke about the tax. And when I say this, I also have to think about revenue that government is getting there. So we have to balance the two to be able to. So in the short term, the most important point is to calm our exporters down so that we can think through it better than panicking and thinking that, well, we are doomed and therefore we are going to have our foreign exchange market destroyed. We are going to have this, we are going to have that. This is not a total kind of ban of our export. It is tariff, and all countries are going through. So when we get to the US, that is where the competition is going to be.
And I get from you how you're trying to assure the market and all those things, but for that person in Swedru who is sending dry fish to US and all the rest, that person might be in a state of despair right now and like, I don't know what to do. But you think that coming out to let the person appreciate that there is no cause for alarm might be enough to cut the nets of those small businesses out there in straight draw?
It should be. George, remember, I have also been a consumer of these export products out there, particularly in US. We consume this. And I know that the 10% hike will not deter the Ghanaian from moving away from the contumely, from moving away from the Kobe, or moving away from the yam. No, I don't think that will deter you. And you have been in UK. If it happened in UK, I don't think when you go there, you say because of 10%, I'm not going to go and eat my yam or my
the puna was still expensive, but I still went out to consume it.
Exactly, or my wachi and so on. So that is why I said in situations like this, we don't have to make it look like there's no solution to it. And I gave you pointers that from the macro perspective, because our export earnings to the from the US account for less than 10%, the effect will not be as much as if it accounted for 80%. Then all of us will have to put our heads in water. But this is just about less than 10%. But when you break it down into the micro, then you see that, well, if in as much as all of us are not happy about this tariff, I think we haven't gotten the base of 10%. The effect would not be so severe to the extent that it will be like the COVID time where we had to rush for support.
But, Prof, again, I want to get your thought quickly before I come in studio here. Donald Trump is asking for a reciprocity, if I could use that expression. So, for just US, maybe, and I asked Mr. Adamaku that question, should we opt for a free trade then? I mean, he's saying that if you take the taxes off my goods, I'll respond. Let's do the same for their goods. And maybe we could be free of this and ensure that that $1.6 billion, we will get it. What do you say to those who are who are coming for this school of thought?
Remember, Ghana is a very small country within the global trade space. If we come together within the AFTA, then it means that we could command some kind of respect. But currently, if we go on an individual level, I don't think we are. But the point is that all these things happening from where I sit, I don't think Ghana is the target. I think it's the big players that are fighting, and we have to bear a bit of the blunt. I mean, that is how I see it. It's about China, it's about US, it's about Canada, that's about US, it's about Mexico, who are close, it's about Brazil, and these are the giants that we are talking about. And because they are giants, at least when the big ones sneeze, it means that we, the small ones, will catch cold. So, and even in the diplomatic circles, normally when countries want to meet countries in Africa, they box all of us together and call our heads of states to come there. I mean, for just Ghana going to negotiate, it's not that easy. If we want to go and do that, I think we have to go as a group, as Africa. Then we'll be able to get something. And as to whether we are united enough to be able to get there. But Trump is also a business person. Remember, the effect is, or the tariff that has been imposed is not the same across the board. So when we are we going to work out Lesotho coming from 50 to 10? So there are differences. And in business and game theory, they will prefer to deal with that individually. So we have to look at all these and then come up with the best strategy that will not hurt our economy.
But Professor, and then there's an argument that someone also said that these tariffs, and as you tried to explain earlier on, were slapped on individual countries, and therefore the bilateral or the block negotiations might be difficult. And that's why there are some of the school of thought that if we should go on the tangent of there's the bilateral negotiations, maybe we could find a way around it on a temporary level, whilst maybe ECOWAS or AU tries to push for that block deal with the US government.
Well, we could go based on our common front. I mean, if it is ECOWAS and we look at the tariff and it's uniform across board, we can go as a block. to be able to see whether we'll get something positive from there. And I still maintain that if you take total U.S. imports, what is the composition as far as Ghana is concerned? Here, I'm not talking about Ghana and U.S. composition. I'm talking about a total U.S. imports. Where will Ghana place? It might be 0.001%. So it means that we are not the one that they are chasing, but they are chasing the big ones. And remember, we have said this several times, and I think Trump is teaching us a lesson. You may like it or you may not like it. What is informing Trump's argument is to ensure that they bring jobs or employment to U.S. Because for them and for Trump, they think that they have been market for many countries, and therefore the employment is being exported to those countries, and they may have a problem. They want some of these countries and investors to come to the U.S. to invest and be able to employ. So can we also learn from that? Such that we will not always want to import everything into Ghana, but we also look within and see whether we can also get our enterprises, however small or micro they are, to be able to support them so that they can produce for us instead of depending on what is imported, and rather creating employment for other countries.
And probably before I just take a quick break, I also wanted to get from you, for you to put on your economics cap. And I stand you educated. There isn't any literature that I've read that seem to support the Trump stance, even though some will say that, yes, it's a good thing, it should be a gradual approach. And you made the argument about the signals he's sending, that we should all look within and support our economies. From World Bank, IMF, and all the renowned economists around the world, they are all condemning this. Do you think that is a right approach in your quest to protect your economy and create jobs for your people?
Well, George, charity begins at home. No country can stay without depending on other countries. There is no literature that says that every country can stand on its own without depending on other countries. There is nothing like that. But when you take Ghana as example, you can't tell me that I go to Melcom and I see toothpick imported. Let's face facts. And that is where I'm coming from. There are some products that we cannot do without it. There are some that are capital goods because we don't manufacture those machines here. We need to get them. There are some intermediate goods that we don't have them. We need to get them. But there are some consumption goods that, George, we can produce them here. Yes, if they are coming in with those imports, we also have to be given that kind of support to be able to compete effectively. Otherwise, if we have to consume everything, you cannot convince me that as a country, with all vast land that we have to import tomatoes and we have to import maize from Burkina, from cereals. You cannot convince me when I am a village boy and I know how to cultivate maize. There are some that we have the comparative advantage, and we have to do our best to be able to produce some whilst we also get some from outside. But we cannot say that because we have to always rely on other countries, we will leave our firms to struggle and therefore concentrate on others. And now that we have Trump putting tariff on us, it means that even what we are producing and exporting, now we are battling with tariff. So we also have to look within. Before you get out to the studio, I'm sure you were in the washroom, you washed down, you did everything, you ate well before you got out. You cannot just go out to the studio and take your bath. So as a country, we also have to make sure that the capacity, the land that we have, that we can also produce, we cannot just leave it. We can produce to feed ourselves and then get some exported as well.
Mr. Adomaku, just quick one as well, and I'll be coming to you for more detail because we have to take a commercial break as well. For you right now, what should be the immediate response of the trade ministry to this? I mean, Prof has spoken, but from you as a business person, you engage these businesses, Cat International, you work with them and all the rest. What should be the immediate communication coming from the trade ministry when it comes to this particular situation?
I want to repeat what Prof said, that the minister needs to come and assure Ghanaians that though we find ourselves in troubled waters, but still be calm because the ship is enough to sail to the other side. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we also need to do a proper assessment of the issues, and then based upon the assessment, also come back and tell industry that this is what government assessment, and if we do A, B, C, and D, we'll be able to overcome it. Like Prof said, that if we are able to produce more, and if your goods are also better, like he said, Ghanaians living in the US, or they like the Kobe and Amani, they will not buy Kobe from Jamaica or Colombia. They will still want to buy the Adwene from Ghana, the Amani, all those kind of things. So and if we can also look at how we can simplify our business operating system cycle so that we can produce at cheaper and more efficient, so that if we're able to reduce our cost of production by, let's say, now ECG is a problem, where there's a new tariff hanging in the sky, very soon it will come. And those tariffs can also hurt our export. So if we can find ways to improve upon the business enabling environment so that Ghanaian business can produce at a competitively cheaper rate, we'll still be able to compete with the goods that are coming from other markets.
Prof, I'll come back to you on the bit about improving the environment for Ghanaian business, because that's something Prof suggested. This is PM Express Business Edition as we look at the impact of the Trump tariff on Ghanaian products and even other countries as well, on the Ghanaian economy, and then the business perspective and also the perspective from an economist. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we talk about the Trump tariff and how that will affect Ghana. And we also look at solutions, the immediate actions. And I just got a WhatsApp message from Professor Ebo, texting, of course, and I just want to quickly share a quick one with our audience. The imposition of tariffs by the U.S. offers an enormous opportunities for Ghana and other African countries to leverage on aftermarket and strategically position themselves to seek strategic partnership and other countries. Not much trade plays between Ghana and U.S. under AGUA. And that is something people have actually complained about, that even though there was an AGUA platform, we couldn't take advantage of that. Some of the major trading partners of U.S. would divert trade to other countries, and we need to position ourselves to benefit actually from that. There's more opportunities. There are more opportunities than the cost, so Ghana should not panic. He's also pressing the button of that we need not panic when it comes to the situation. Firms in the free zones area producing under AGUA will have to be supported to improve on their efficiency, to reduce the cost so they can still compete after this tariff. And Mr. Adomako, I was just coming back to you about the business environment as well. What should government be doing? Prof spoke about it. What should we be doing also now for these businesses to offer some relief, breaks, so that they can absorb these shocks as well, Prof?
Okay.
Talk about tariff, the cost of production, and all those things. I mean, sorry that I cut in here.
Yeah, I think cost of production in Ghana is very high. Electricity, we are told electricity tariff is going to go up. Water is also expensive. Rent is also expensive for businesses. Almost everything in Ghana is more expensive than even a square meter in Ghana may be expensive than a square meter you'll find in Beijing. And that is something that we have, and most of these figures are arrived at without any scientific analysis. People just look into the sky or go and consult an oracle and say that, look, I'm selling this office to you for this amount of which I think is not making Ghana competitive. So government needs to do more about what can be done. Last week, the World Bank released its ease of be ready report.
Yeah.
And it also came up with some diagnostic issues that we need to address if we want Ghana's economy to be able to get to the level of the Asian tigers. And I'm not seeing how we are, the seriousness of Ghana in terms of making the Ghanaian private sector competitive. Look, it's like football. When Black Stars is going to play a tournament, they need to prepare so that when they go, they can compete with other countries and win. But in Ghana, it appears that we don't have competition mindset. The only where we hear of competition is only in our political parties. But in the commerce, in the business, how can we support Ghanaian businesses? Not giving them necessary money, but how can we create an environment that can make Ghanaian businesses be able to compete so that when they send their goods abroad, people will look at Ghanaian and give them thumbs up. And some of these things requires government support. For example, you see how South African businesses have invaded our Ghanaian market, but you don't find Ghanaian businesses there. You only find Ghanaian churches there. That is a topic for another day. But we want to see how we are using the instrument of state intelligence, our national security. I will not mention the name of the country. Before their business started coming here, they sent their national security to come and also gather intelligence report and market study. Because their government believes that once their businesses come and survive in Ghana, they'll be able to repatriate dollars and profit back home. Look at the Nigerian bank. The managers and the line managers are Nigerians. But Ghanaian banks are not in Nigeria. So the Ghanaians business are not set up competition mentality. All that we want to do is just the local champion. And if we are going to do this, I'm not sure how we can even take advantage of the AFCFTA, because AFCFTA means that quota-free, duty-free business can also come into your country. Of course, there's also the GIPC Act is also going to review, and that will dismantle the barriers that have been placed before foreign businesses operating in the Ghanaian retail space.
And my producers will try and put up a statement on our screen for us very soon, because the IMF managing director has actually issued a statement just a while ago and trying to assure the markets around the world. And as we speak right now, you know that the IMF mission is actually in town to carry out their fourth review in terms of how Ghana fared under the fund program as well. But let me go to Professor William Barboat in terms of wrapping up. In a minute, your final words in terms of, listen, what should be done now and what next? In a minute, Prof.
Well, let me before I say that, let me make this point. Macron said, well, Ghana, we don't export to South Africa or other countries except that it's churches. And I think I have in front of me our exports to African countries in 2024. And Ghana exported, in terms of, I think it takes about 36% to South Africa. And South Africa is our leading export destination in Africa. We can do a bit more, but I think we it's not that we are not doing anything, especially when it comes to gold and some other products like mineral fuels and oils. We also export to South Africa. Now, what are we supposed to do? I think we have the short term, medium, and long term, and we've spoken about that. And the business environment is something that we've spoken to about it. But I think firms and Ghanaians also have to look into ourselves and see what we can also do for ourselves. We agree that doing business environment is not the best, and we've spoken about it, and I'm sure regulatory agencies, governments, and everybody will try to do that. But we also have to do a bit. Our culture in Ghana doesn't seem to encourage partnership, joint venture. And many a time, somebody starts a business and doesn't want to get somebody on board or even list it on the stock exchange to be able to expand. So we also have to look within us and within our culture and find out when we start business, our aim is to grow the business from one man to 2 to 3 to a limited liability company listed on the stock exchange. And in that case, you can expand and go to other African countries. We always set up businesses and we think we have to bequeath it to our children. And therefore, we don't want anybody to come on board. I think it's something that we need to look at too. We also need to look at our attitude in terms of the way we look at our working capital. In the past, you will hear that somebody starts a business and the first thing that he does is to get a very good car for himself and without looking at what the business is looking. I think things are changing because if you invest more into the business, then you are going to get more returns to be able to do that. We also have to have this business mentality to be able to expand our businesses and so on. And the last thing that I would do, as I would say, as far as this is concerned, is the ethics that we need to teach our students before they go out there. Unfortunately, when you speak to businesses and businessmen, they don't want to invest because even the worker that has been employed thinks that within a matter of 1 year or 2 years, he has to get what he wants. Theft and a lot of things happen. So
Thank you so much, Prof. Adimago, 30 seconds. I'm sorry because of time. Your thought, please. Your final thoughts.
Let's be calm and let's do what we are doing best. We'll be able to overcome these challenges. Thank you.
This has been PM Express talking about the Trump tariff and how it's affecting Ghana. Adimago is with CAF International West African Director. And also, we had Professor William Babwat, he's economist from the University of Ghana at Legon. So sharing his thoughts. I know the debate will still go on in your homes and your offices on how we can get around this. And this has been PM Express Business Edition. Have a great day.